Welcome to Alternative Dog Moms Podcast. I'm Kimberly Gauthier, the creator of Keep the Tail Wagging. For the past 9 years, I've been blogging about raw feeding, pet wellness, and life as a crazy dog mom. I've seen massive improvements in my dog's health since I started raising my dogs naturally, and I'm passionate about sharing my experience to help other pet parents.
I'm Erin Scott. For the past 9 years, I've been researching and learning everything I can about healing cancer, allergies, autoimmune, and mystery illnesses in both my dogs and myself, and I can't wait to share with you everything I've learned on this journey. As the Alternative Dog Moms, we're bringing you all the latest dog health news that we're following and sharing the tips, tricks, and resources we learn along the way. Now, let's get started. Hello, Kimberly.
Hello, Erin.
So I was just noticing the bowls behind you that say devour, slurp, gulp. I love that.
My Ray Dunn collection. Yeah. I didn't get rid of all my mugs except for my dog and tea because I love tea. So I have a bunch of tea themed mugs and an apple cider mug. But I pack them up and put them away. And one day I'm going to have a huge garage sale and just get rid of a whole lot of stuff. But I had to keep all my lovely dog mugs. I have one up there that says tasty and eat up and drink up.
Oh, okay. I couldn't see the other one.
And I have I wolf you over there. Dogs rule. Woof. Good dog. Good doggy. Yeah, I have lots of Ray Dunn stuff. I actually just don't even look for it anymore because that's not true. I do look for it, but I don't look for it as I was very dedicated to, trying to track down really cool Ray Dunn stuff, but it's so addictive and you can't drink out of all of these mugs. And they took over this room and I realized that's ridiculous to have a room devoted to mugs. So they had to go.
My mom is a big mug buyer. We have, aunt and uncle mugs from my nephew, and she gives us dog mugs and ravens and Orioles. And Tim just thinks it's hilarious because when I met him, he had 2 coffee mugs and they had been free from the yellow pages or something. And now we have so many mugs that it's overflowing. They're stacked on top of each other. We have extra large ones that won't even fit in, the regular cabinet. They're in another cabinet.
It's too easy. It's such an easy thing to do. Cause Jay and Adrian, I sent them cat mom mugs a couple years ago. I sent Scott a dog dad mug. I mean, they're such an easy gift to give to people. And so that's why I just don't do them. And then what sucks is that it's so hard to get rid of them.
Yeah.
There's so many people who collect mugs, but they're very particular about what they want. And I'm just sort of here. I had a whole bunch of them. I'm $50, just take them all. It's way more than $50. You could sell these and make 3 times that, just $50 and take them all. But they're well, no, I only want this one and this one because that'll complete my collection. And in the Ray Dunn groups, you have to, in order to sell mugs, you have to take a picture of them. And on the picture needs to be a Post-it or an index card with a date. I have no idea why. I don't know if it's to keep people from trying to resell a mug over and over again that they don't, I don't know what's going on. But,
is it when you're kidnapped and you take a picture with the newspaper?
You have to do all these weird things. And I am so very lazy when it comes to things like that. And I am more of I'm going to sit on the table. You take what you want. If you don't want it, don't take it by. And at the end of the day, as I cannot stand doing garage sales. So at the end of the garage sale, I'm just going to sort of start giving stuff away, or it's just going to be packed up and taken to Goodwill.
Yeah.
But my mother-in-law works at a thrift store that I think is for the senior center. And usually now I'm starting to give stuff to her where I'm here, why don't you guys sell these? And then it supports the thrift store. So I have a bunch of clothes and a bunch of mugs. And I want to do a garage sale, but most likely I'm going to meet her at the thrift store with my totes of things and say, here you go. The totes aren't for you. I want those back.
Well, the big sort of drama in my family is that my grandmother, who is 98 and has lived with my parents ever since I was a kid, she has been moved into assisted living because my parents, who are 70 years old, they were basically doing like round the clock care for her.
Mm-hmm.
And it just got to be for like a year and a half, and so they're just really run down, and they've been, moving her into this assisted living. And my grandmother is a huge collector of everything rooster. So, I mean, there are so many rooster things. I mean, like you can't even imagine. And so obviously the room that she's in now is much smaller. And so my mom's been like there's a wreath and there's wall hangings and, her mug collection and all these things. But like, we literally still have this whole like in-law apartment full of everything rooster. And we're like, oh my God, what are we going to do with all these things? So I'm hoping they'll find like some rooster collector on
rooster enthusiast.
Yes. It's like literally every possible thing you could ever imagine, because literally my entire life, my mom's been just like giving my grandmother all this rooster stuff, and then I'm giving it to her because like I don't know what else to give to her.
Isn't it funny? It's like I made a point of trying not to do that to people because my ex-mother-in-law, because I was married years and years and years ago, she loved zebras and zebra print. And she made the mistake of saying that once. And then from that point on, like her whole house was zebra stuff. And it wasn't her choice. It was just that that's what people got her. Throw pillows, towels, kitchen towels, dishes, everything was zebra. She had different stuffed zebras all over. And although she wasn't complaining, but it was just sort of like, it wasn't that I wanted to do this. It's just that people, and I started to wonder about like people who have pig everything. Did they really want that? Or is it that they made the mistake of, really enjoying that? And then everyone started giving them pig stuff. Because I don't often just get random gifts from people, but when I do get gifts, but I'm actually really excited about it because since it's not all the time, I usually get something that's Marvel Comics or something that is, my one friend gets me Black Santa stuff because we were like, why don't they have Black Santa stuff? And then all of a sudden, a couple of years ago, places started having Black Santa stuff. So I have Black Santa pants and towels and all, but it's like a joke between us and at Christmas time, well, my Black Santa pants, my pajama pants, I wear year round, but the rest of the year, I have a whole tote filled with Black Santa stuff. I even have a Black Santa and I put it out for the holidays and then I back it up after the holidays and put it back in the tote. But I'm grateful because since Christmas is one time a year, it's not like everyone's I'm not going to be collecting it on, all year round, thankfully.
Yeah, with my mom, it's strawberries, like everything strawberry in the kitchen and everything. And I think about 10 years ago, Tim and I were kind of like, I think she's over the strawberries. Like, so we haven't gotten anything strawberry in quite a while for her now. I think she's oversaturated at this point.
Do you have anything that's your thing?
Well, there's a couple things. I'm kind of laughing when you said zebra print, because when I was like in college, I had a leopard print purse. And so then, yes, there was a period of time where I was getting a lot of leopard print things, probably until I was 35. But now it's just dog, everything dog. And
yeah.
And when we got married, we had like roses was kind of our theme of things, and our flowers of all different shades. And so I think my aunt will still get me things with like roses on them or collectible things, and also pink depression glass. I have some things of pink depression glass that she'll get me too, but that's just like my aunt, nobody else.
I have to Google that now. I have no idea what that is. There, it came right up.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Wow. See, now what you have here, I would love it, but in blue.
I think there's that too.
I used to get blue glass stuff and people would give it to me. And so I have vases around the house and I have some wine bottles that were from a winery in Eastern Washington where they use blue glass. I still have those. I always said I was going to go back and buy more wine, but I never did. I'm not really a wine drinker. But yeah, I have blue glass stuff. But yeah, I try not to start up anything because it becomes, again, Ray Dunn. And now I got a bunch of Ray Dunn mugs that I do not need and I don't care about. No one wants them because it's not like they're collectible ones. But I will donate them, and someone will either come across them and be like, "Oh my God, this is Ray Dunn," or someone who doesn't care. It's just like, I need a mug, and they'll just buy it.
I also have like so many books, but those are mostly me buying them for me.
With you with books, with me, it's movies. So I have hundreds of movies, and I need to stop. I was going to stop buying them. And then for a while I didn't, because I was like with streaming and cable, and it's like, why do I need to buy movies? But sometimes it's just like, sometimes I just want to watch a certain movie. And of course, you will appreciate this. All my movies are organized by genre. And so I have a book of romantic comedies, a book of horror movies, a book of superhero movies, a book of, action movies, a book of just dramas. And, so I have a book for all my genres. And then my Marvel movies they're not in order by release date. They're in order by timeline. However, within that, there are some movies that I would prefer to have separated, like my X-Men movies, because they're not part of the Avengers timeline. They're in their own section. And so, yeah, I took joy sitting down in front of TV and just organizing my movies in the books. That was so much fun.
So do you have DVDs or Blu-ray?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like one of those people that was like, I am not doing this Blu-ray nonsense.
Yeah.
But then they started moving all the good stuff to the Blu-rays. And so it's like, okay. So usually, and nowadays, if you get one, it's a Blu-ray and a DVD. And we have in our big TV, which is the really good movie watching TV, it has a DVD player hooked up to it. The Blu-ray is hooked up to my other two TVs. So I have both.
Because, years ago when Tim and I met, we both worked in in music stores that also sold movies and stuff. So we both had like extensive VHS collections from when we worked in the music store. And then we started buying everything on DVD. So we still have like this whole thing of DVDs because we were buying all our stuff from VHS on DVD. And then when Blu-ray came out, we were like, oh, we're not doing that.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
Yeah. I don't even think we have a Blu-ray player unless like his Xbox or something does. I don't know.
I do have a Blu-ray player. What sucks is what I've learned recently, and it makes sense, but smart TVs get outdated. Like they advance to or I should say the streaming advances to the point where I have one TV that will only play Amazon Prime and Netflix, but it's too old. It's like a few years old.
It's like obsolete or whatever. Yeah.
It's probably like 5 years old, but yeah, it won't play Hulu or anything like that. And it's been like that for a while, but I am not getting rid of it because I don't need it to play Hulu. And also I can go and get a Blu-ray that plays Hulu, but even that's complicated because I can't order any of that stuff online because of course I would order it on Amazon to get the best price, but you have to make sure it's for US movies, because it's not always clear. So I would just have to go to the store and buy one. And I don't even need that. There is nothing that I need to watch on this particular TV on Hulu. I can go into another room. So yeah, it's, they just want my money.
So what's up with the dogs?
What's up with the dogs?
I saw Bella was being ornery eating your buttons.
Yes, she ate my buttons last night or this morning. She was cuddled up in one of my shirts last night, but then this morning she decided that she was going to eat the buttons off of the shirt. So I woke up to her crunching and was like, what? That doesn't sound like a toy. At least not one that I got her. And that's when I realized she had eaten 3 of the buttons off my shirt. So I went and got 3 buttons today from Joann Fabric and will eventually sew those on. Probably like in 3 years, I'll decide to sew them on. If I even know where the buttons are located. But yeah, so she's she's a really good girl. She threw up last night.
Oh
Johan was sitting on the sofa with her, and I heard him say, "Ew, what was that? Are you about to throw up?" And then I heard, "Blah."
no.
And so I went and got and I keep the old grocery bags, and I went and got it, and just basically, because I put blankets over our sofas, and so it was on the blanket. So I just flipped the blanket into the bag and let it dry. It just went right into there. She was very interested. I'm like, no, you do not get to eat it again. I'm sorry. You're gonna let your gut rest for the night. And I went and heated her up some bone broth and gave her that for the night. And Johan he cannot handle sick dogs. His response to everything is to put him outside. Where I'm just like, we need to find out what's going on, because it's like, how would you feel if you were super sick and I was just like shoved you out in the yard and I was like, go eat grass? It's like, that's not what we're going to do. But yeah, she's fine.
So I'm laughing hysterically because we had a situation. I'll try to be as delicate as I can about it, where Tim took Neno out for a walk, and do your dogs ever eat your hair?
No, they don't.
Because I guess there's this hair that'll fall out and be on the rug, and then somehow they or they're chewing, and I don't know, they somehow end up eating my hair. So I guess Neno went to relieve himself, and not everything came out because it was there was my hair. And so instead of him just, putting the bag over his hand and making the assist, he walks, all the way home with it, with the poor guy trying to rip it off. And then he comes yelling for me, help, help, we have a stage 5 clinger. Because that's our code for these situations. So I gotta come out and handle it. And he's like, well, it's your hair.
Hey, quick question for you. Are you someone who wants to be fit, healthy, and happy? And what if I told you could get your dream body by simply just listening to a podcast? I'm Josh.
And I'm KG, and we're the hosts of the Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast.
Listen, we get it. Fitness isn't easy. Carbs, no carbs.
Just stop, okay? It doesn't have to be that complicated. And that's why we made this podcast. We get straight to the facts so you can become your best you.
So the way to check us out is click the link in the show notes or search Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast on any of the major podcast platforms. We'll see you soon.
They do that with grass sometimes.
Yes, it happens with grass. Yeah. Yes.
When Sydney was alive, if that ever happened, she would panic and turn and look to me.
Yeah, Neno panics.
She would run to me and then stand in between my legs. And so that's why I'd have the poo bag and put it on and pull it out. But yeah, Johan would he would just be like, ugh.
Yeah, Tim won't handle it either. I'm like, you walk this poor guy home and him trying to, jerk all around and get it out. And I was like, my God, you already.
I went and got leaves because I was out of poo bags. And so I went and got leaves. I dug through my purse to find a piece of receipt or something.
Yeah, or a tissue. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just I remember one time when Sydney was a puppy and she was passing the worms. And yeah, one was just hanging out and Johan was just like, oh my God. And I just went and pulled it out and he was just disgusted. And I went and washed my hands and he just stared at me cross-eyed for the rest of the night. Just like, I can't believe you did that. I'm like, well, what was I supposed to do? It's it was fine. It's she's just getting the worms out of her body. It's okay.
That's the one time I feel like a real mom,
It's just who cares? It's just it's over. It's fine. Just wash your hands. Yeah. Yeah.
I know. He acts like I wanted him to handle it with his bare hands or something.
Yeah. I mean, it's it's really easy.
You pick up poop off the ground. What's the difference?
It's really easy to do. Yeah, but yeah, Johan, he can't. He gets all weird when just the dogs assume the position. And he's just like, oh my God, what are they doing? And he does this running commentary through the whole thing. And I was just and I told him, it's I'm going to start doing that. The second you walk into the bathroom and close the door, I'm just going to stand outside and just do a running commentary and act like it's just the grossest thing. And he was just I'm just saying. And it's yeah, it's what they do. All creatures poop. Everyone, I should get him that book for Christmas.
Yes, I was just thinking that.
Everyone poops. But yeah, so, but Yeah, this is week 3 of I have a name for it, light to heavy feeding.
Okay.
I did not make that up. I Googled it, and I'm doing research for my article that I'm writing about it. And that's what I discovered it's called, light to heavy eating. And there are benefits. There's science. And there is science behind it. What cracks me up is that there's also science behind eating a heavy meal in the morning and a light meal in the evening. So ultimately, it just depends on what works for you. But what I've learned so far is that it's good for detox. It's good for, letting the body rest and recuperate in the evening. And because it's my whole thing is, and the reason why it made sense to me is just, I think about Thanksgiving. I said this to my friend earlier today. It's like, after I eat a Thanksgiving meal, even if I don't, I'm not that person that stuffs myself on Thanksgiving. I just eat. And it is not because of the tryptophan. I mean, I'm not eating that much turkey, but I don't feel like, the people who go to the Black Friday sales right after like Thursday evening, I'm like, there's no way. I don't feel like doing anything. I barely feel like watching a movie. I just want to sit on the sofa with my Kindle playing some random game that doesn't take too much mind. And I don't want to talk to anyone or anything. So I was thinking about, I'm giving my dogs, the idea of doing a heavy meal in the morning and a light meal in the evening, or just a regular meal in the morning, and then expecting them to want to go for a walk. And they do all of these things, but they're just not at the best optimal place when they do it. And like today, they had their light meal in the morning, and it's not like a super light meal. It's a meal, but it's probably at least half of what they would normally eat, or less than half. But I had a meeting at 3:00. And so I'm outside, it's 2:50. And I'm like, okay, guys, let's go in the house. And usually I'm gathering them up one at a time to get them in the house because they're like herding cats. But this time I just said, let's go in the house. And I start walking, and everyone gets up and starts walking with me, and they go into the house. And it's just like one after the other. And just my communication with them is a lot easier. Our walks are a lot easier. They sleep well at night, except for this morning, which was my fault. I had took an allergy pill way too late. So I was zonked out and wasn't able to get Bella because she will entertain herself and hence the buttons. So what's up with Neno besides the poop?
So, yeah, we're back to just kind of his normal feeding schedule right now. And I'm actually thinking, so what we had tried doing was, really light meal in the evening and heavier meal in the morning, but that definitely was not working for him. So if we try it again, I actually might do more what you're talking about.
So why wasn't it working for him?
Well, he's had ongoing digestive issues, and he would get reflux, and having the heavy meal in the morning and then at not as much at night, all night long, he was having reflux and, sounding like he might vomit. And then he was out eating grass, and I had these herbs that like help calm his stomach, and I had to keep giving them to him to get his stomach to calm back down. So him having like nothing really in his stomach at night was not a good fit for him.
Yeah.
And we had struggled so long because he'd had that kind of issue in the past, and we had struggled so long and got him in like such a good place. And then I like feel like I threw it all off, and it pretty much he only had like one really bad night, and then the next night was like not quite as bad. And then we got him back on like the regular feeding schedule, and he's been better since then. So I'm like hesitant to try it again or to mess anything up, but I would do it the opposite way next time, where I would do later in the morning, heavier in the evening, I think, and see if that helped him. But I want to make sure I do it on a weekend, so that way I'm here to see him all day. And I'm not just like, hey, I'm going to mess up your morning food and then stick you in the crate and leave all day. And now I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wait like another week or so that we're like back into like a good even keel with him before I tried doing it really slow too. Like I didn't just change the next day. I did it over the course of like probably 10 days or so, where I would just like gradually do like lesson one, more in the other, lesson one. And it seemed like, okay. But then, when we tried to kind of go full tilt, it didn't work.
Yeah. The one meal a day didn't work for Rodrigo. It was too much food in one meal. And he had a night where he was just not doing good and wanting to go outside over and over again. And that's when I started doing the light in the morning and then a heavier meal in the evening, just not all their food in the evening. And that seems to he does really well with this. And it's nice because it's, because I was trying to, he eats about 13 ounces, about 12 and a half to 13 ounces a meal. But all of that, he's just not going to eat it in one meal. It's just way too much. But, if I can give him a few more ounces in the evening, so instead of 13 ounces, I'll just feed him a pound. He does perfectly fine. So far. It's been 3 weeks. He's doing great.
Okay.
So anything else?
No, that's been our Neno story. Luckily, he had a calm weekend this weekend. He didn't have to go anywhere because he was so miserable.
Oh my God. Yeah, this weekend. I took Bella to a festival.
Oh, how did she do?
It was like, I guess it's not really a festival. It was a dog-centered event called Poochella.
That's cute.
She's so funny because she still doesn't like to get in the car. So it's like this huge ordeal of getting her into the car. And we got there and then she didn't want to get out of the car. So I put a blanket on our back seat because she is a nervous peer. But I just basically started pulling the blanket out of the car and with her on it. So eventually she got out of the car. So it's like, yay, me. That only worked one time. The next time she was just like, I know what's happening here. But I took her. She was really interested. It was funny because we got to the thing and she's just like, oh, well, what's this? And she saw people and dogs and she's very much a people person. She's curious about other dogs and she's interested in other dogs sometimes, but she likes to just take her time. And one thing that I knew this would happen, but I kind of forgot. And because I took her at the very beginning of the event. So it started at 10. We got there at 10:30. I didn't want her at the height of everything. But people, even though it's not a dog park, even though we don't know each other, people still want to do the introductions. And I do not do introductions on leash.
Yeah.
And I get it. I understand why people do this, but I just sort of feel like it's so dangerous because you don't know that dog. And you can always tell the people who don't really know much about dog behavior because I saw people with their dog, like dogs that were super exuberant, like Apollo is a dog that I could take him to an event like that at the very end of the day when most people were gone. Then I could take him, but I could never take him during the event because he gets so excited and jumpy. He's just a little out of control. It would have to be super, super crowded where he just couldn't do it for me to be able to keep him a little calmed down. But I get it where people, your dog and your dog is being friendly and wants to play, but the dog that he's giving this energy to, you don't know, and you don't know how it's going to respond. And what looks like play or starts out as play can very quickly turn into something else. So I just don't allow that. So I spent the time with her just basically walking between her and other dogs. And I would have people letting their dog over. And there were a couple people that I was just sort of like, okay, well, I didn't say anything to them. I was just like, okay, well, let's just give them some space. And I would back up with her behind me. And that they would get the clue like, oh, okay, she's not going to allow my dog. And, and it's sad because I think that, people, they get a little butthurt about it because it's sort of like that's what they think that they're there for. But it's like you have a really tiny dog. So you feel like your dog can go anywhere and do anything. But you can see that my dog has her tail tucked and she's nervous.
But people don't even know to look for that. They don't know what that means. Yeah.
I had one person that just kept getting in her face because she has such pretty eyes. She has such pretty eyes. You should take her to that booth and have her picture taken because she has such pretty eyes. Don't you want her to have pictures of her? And I'm just sort of like trying to, navigate this keep the woman back a little bit. She eventually got into her face with her camera to take a picture of her. Just like, really, like, what is wrong with you? I mean, and again, people just have very different boundaries when it comes to dogs. But, she had 2 dogs that she wasn't really paying attention to because she was so focused on my dog's pretty eyes. And so I'm trying to keep her dogs out of Bella's space and, and basically watching Bella to see who did she want to engage with. And so like she loves German Shepherds, figures. And so she was perfectly happy to say hello to German Shepherds. And it's like if she started kind of stretched towards a dog, I would walk with her until she stopped. And when we would stop there, and then when she was ready to stop, move on, we would move on. And so what's nice is that people who had booths were really good. And so I had people saying, hey, you can come through here just so she can get away. Like they understood what was happening. And because there were times where I was trying to get her to walk around the event because we were at the Save a Mutt, which is the rescue that I work with and where I got her from. She knows those people. And so she just wanted to stay there. And it's like, no, we're going to walk around. And so it was like that's why I wanted to go early because it was going to be slow getting her she would take a few steps and then she'd freeze and be like, I don't know. And we'd wait and then we'd take a few more steps. And then eventually she was perfect. By the time we left and we were there for probably an hour, she was walking around and doing really well.
Oh, good.
So she did good. She did really good.
Oh.
And then she embarrassed me the next day when I took her to Skookum because she wouldn't leave. And everyone just sat there watching me as I'm trying to convince her to leave. And she was just like, no, I don't want to go. She loves it there.
That was adorable.
Yeah. She's that dog that, if I took my dogs to dog park, she would be the dog that I'd be chasing around trying to get the leash on her to take her home. And she just, and that thankfully I don't take the leash off of her when I take places because I honestly think that she would run away from me and then pee on the ground when I went to pick her up.
Exactly. Yeah.
So let's talk. So I saw the link to the non-HPP article and I was so confused because I thought that we had all changed our mind about HPP and that now it's okay. And I was so surprised to see a stance that was similar to, the stance that we've had in the past on HPP.
I agree. Yeah. So Chelsea Kent from Solutions posted a really thorough scientific analysis of HPP versus non-HPP. And, I guess what I thought was so interesting is that the science around that it starts out by saying the science around HPP shows that the nutrients that have been proven to suffer the most damage from HPP processing are those that are not commonly tested. Yeah. And it goes out to list what those are. And so, yeah, I guess it would be really interesting to compare the research that we heard from Billy and Kelly about the fact that there wasn't as much degradation in nutrients to the analysis that Chelsea has done. And then I felt like it was a little bit of like an East Coast, West Coast rap battle going on.
Well, that and it's just sort of like how much of it has to do with HPP itself, or are there different ways, like different methods of HPP?
Yes.
And then different equipment where one equipment, so for instance, the equipment that Green Juju uses or the organization that they work with, it doesn't have the same degradation as other, because I figured this has been a process that's been going around for a long, so I can imagine that it's evolved over time. And that was one of the points that Billy made was that, it has evolved over time, but maybe not everyone has moved on to better equipment.
Yeah, like a more modern version. Mm-hmm. And I guess what was confusing to me, and when I was reading the comments on the post too, nobody said it exactly this way, but the consensus I was getting is like, how do we know that we're comparing apples to apples here? And that's what I'd love to see more conversation about, because I'm trying to read this and it's, getting a little in depth into like, what am I looking at? And I appreciate the research of it, but I want to, make sure I'm really digging in and comparing the same things. And
yeah, I mean, it is, It's hard. It's hard because it's not that I think anyone is wrong. It's just that we don't see what each person is looking at.
Right.
And so it's hard. Like, well, we don't know if it's apples to apples. It could be apples to oranges. I think it's interesting when people say things like, well, I just don't like any of my food to be processed, because I know what they mean, but I get hung up with that word because all food is processed. It's in some method. So it's just a matter.
I mean, unless you're literally just eating an apple that you pick right off a tree.
Exactly. I mean, we're processing the food, I mean, whether if we're getting at the grocery store, whether we're getting it at a local farm, there's some processing that's going to be involved in it. I get that it's not to the level of HPP, but when we're talking about any type of commercial raw food, it's going to be processed. There's going to be with a lot of companies, they're going to be using a kill step. It may not be HPP, but it's going to be some sort of kill step is going to be used. They're going to add nutrients to the, maybe synthetic nutrients to the meal to make it so that it's nutritionally complete. And also, this also reminds me of something that I often say, of species appropriate, where it's like, well, I want to feed my dogs a species appropriate diet, but then I feed my dogs foods that are definitely, they would not seek out and eat on their own, because it's just, if I want to make sure that I'm meeting their nutritional needs, there are going to be some foods that are just going to be easier and more affordable to get those nutrients out of a food that they wouldn't naturally get on their own. So it's like, these words, we're taking it all way so seriously, but it is pretty fascinating. And it'll be interesting to see if Billy and Kelly come out with, like some clarifications, not so much a response, but clarifications. It'd be nice if they all just got on a live together and talked it out.
Yeah. That's what I hope. Yeah. There's definitely some interesting articles going around this week.
I thought the one you sent me from Phytos of Reality about vets making money. And I think it's so hilarious because people really have latched on to this idea that veterinarians are only in it for the money. Like, they're only giving our dogs vaccinations for the money. They're only going to do this for the money. And if that were truly the case, they would be a lot more well off than they are. And I don't know many rich veterinarians. They may have their own clinic, but that comes with overhead and staff and all of that. So it's just like, I don't know a lot of, yes, there are celebrity veterinarians. I don't know anything about them, but I don't know any rich, locally here. I don't know any rich veterinarians. But to me, I think it's more, I look to the pharmaceutical industry and then the big pet food companies, as far as that's who's really making money. This has nothing to do with dog food, but I was watching, I think I was diving down a YouTube rabbit hole, and I came across a video about obesity in the United States. And, 50% of Americans are certified, or considered obese. And how they're coming out now with I don't know if these are studies or just, I don't know where this information is coming from, but doctors are coming out and saying that obesity isn't about diet or poor diet or lack of exercise. It's actually something in the brain. There's something in your brain that is the reason why you're obese, and how if your parents are obese, you're going to be much more likely because you inherited this from them. So now they have a drug that you can take that'll help you lose the weight. And it's just one of those things where, of course you do. Of course you do. And, it's the same thing with the number of vaccinations where, they talk about with children, there was so many, like 5, 7 vaccinations children get, where now it's like over 50, or I don't know if that's true, but it's some astronomical number today that children get. And then the same thing with dogs, where we're being introduced to all these vaccinations. And I have to ask, is this really necessary? And what's interesting to me is when I started asking that question, I wasn't able to get a straight answer. And it felt like the response that I got was more of a, this is what the pharmaceutical salesperson was probably saying, well, does your dog ever drink out of ponds or, or puddles of water? Then you need this vaccination. And it's like, yeah, but my dog's been doing that for years and never gotten sick. What's changed now? And there are a lot of people that either don't have the courage or the knowledge to ask those type of questions. A lot of people don't do well on the fly. And I'm such a curious person that I don't ask the questions to be like, aha, you're trying to poison my dog. I ask the question because I generally want to know what, like I think there was a flu vaccine for a minute for dogs. And I was just like, why would I give my dogs a flu vaccine? They've never had the flu. And the flu outbreak that I knew of, the big one, was in Chicago. I'm in Washington. So why does my dog need to have?
And my dog doesn't go to doggy daycare or
Exactly.
things like that,
And I've had people, because I think I wrote an article about it, and I had people like, this is such dangerous information because people need to know how dangerous this flu is and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, but I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it. I'm just explaining why I'm not going to do it. I don't think that there is a risk for me. Same thing with like heartworm medication. Heartworm is not an issue in this state. Why would I continually give my dogs heartworm medication without any clear evidence that they're at risk of contracting heartworm? But again, a lot of people don't know to ask the questions or are afraid, intimidated, or just, I definitely have been that person that's been like 3 hours later, like, oh, I should have said this.
Right.
But I've learned to, whenever anyone introduces something new to me at the vet office, to just say, give me the information and I'll go home and I'll read it and think about it, just to avoid having my dogs get an unnecessary vaccination. And then also, if they continue to push, I will just leave. I'll pay the bill, leave, and never go back again. And I've had that happen, just only a couple of times, but I've had that happen. But I've never thought that vets were making tons of money on the pet food. I've never had any vet pressure me to buy pet food, or I've only had one vet in the past 13 years recommend Hills to me as a solution for something. It's just there because, one vet, Helping Hands in Linwood, Washington, someone there mentioned to me once that for some people it's just more convenient for them to get it at the vet's clinic. But a lot of times I see veterinarians, at my current vet, I've seen them do this many times where they'll say, we'll give you a small bag here, but you'll get it for a much better price if you get it on Chewy.com. And they're not giving them an affiliate link to do that. They're just letting them know. So they're not, I've never really thought that vets were making tons of money.
Yeah, so I'll post a link in the show notes to this blog that says how much do vets make to recommend dog food. And yeah, what I got out of it was that it's not so much that they're getting any sort of kickbacks or commissions. It's more just that that's what they're told, but that's what they learn in vet school. That's what the, sales rep is telling them. That sounds very convincing and has all these pretty charts and data and things, and so I just thought that was really interesting. And it just goes to our point, right, that we've heard in different places that, vets don't necessarily learn a ton about nutrition or what is optimal nutrition. And then my cynical brain, right, gets, goes to the place of like, well, yeah, that's what happens when you have, big pet food and pharmaceutical industries that are, writing the textbooks and giving the money to the schools. It's not so much that it's trickling down to the individual veterinarians themselves. It's like, if you're writing, the book that everybody's reading and learning from, then you control the flow of the information.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, it's disappointing to me when people won't think outside of that. I think that sucks. But I'm starting to sort of understand why. I've heard from a few traditional vets and vet techs who are basically, we don't have a client base that's going to do the homework that's needed to do this correctly. So it's easier for us to just stick with the fill in the blank is toxic to dogs and go from there rather than explaining, like, for instance, well, there are some grapes that dogs may be able to eat, but other grapes that dogs aren't able to eat. This is what you need to know about the grapes, and this is how much. And with your dogs, all of that, the eyes glaze over. And I can understand that because just me talking right now, my own eyes glazed over. So, I can get it. And I'm not saying that grapes aren't toxic, but we have some, I don't know what type of grapes we have, but we have a grape plant. And when Sydney was alive, she would go and rip off a branch and eat those grapes all the time. And it was funny because I didn't notice that she was doing it. We were like blaming the birds, like what is eating these grapes? I could have sworn that there were grapes on here, or maybe the deer were coming through. But then I saw her doing it, and then I blocked it so she couldn't do it anymore because grapes are toxic. But she never got sick, and I've heard from other people with the same thing. And the consensus was that it was a type of grape. So for me, grapes don't need to be a part of my dog's diet. So I'm okay with saying no grapes. I've also known people that gave their dogs milk chocolate, but gave their dogs chocolate as a treat. Their dogs were perfectly fine. But, I'm okay. My dogs don't need chocolate in their diet. So I'm okay with not doing that.
The thing with grapes that I heard, I guess, that there's certain dogs that have something that can have a like immediate reaction, something where it shuts their kidneys down or something. And it's kind of like you don't necessarily know that your dog has this inclination until something terrible happens. And I will tell you, this is horrible, but we didn't know about the whole grape thing. And there was like a period of time, probably 10 years ago, where we were like obsessed with eating grapes all the time. And we would like give them to the dogs. And then all of a sudden one day I'm like, oh, you're not supposed to give dogs. We've totally been doing that like all the time. And thank God our dogs are always okay. But we definitely don't do that anymore. We haven't done that in a really long time.
I did the same thing. I think we all, it's like we always knew. But, when it comes to garlic, because I always tell people, it's like I do a garlic supplement. Because that way I know exactly how much I'm giving my dogs. Right. I'm not worried about, is this too much? Is this fresh enough? Is this from China? All these questions that people come up. Is this organic? Are you growing it yourself? Did you let it sit?
Yes.
The right amount. Did you crush it and let it sit for the right amount of time?
That's the one I've seen. Yes.
It's like, it's too much. When you start making all these rules around, I already have so many rules that I have to follow with feeding my dogs. I'm not interested anymore. So I do a garlic supplement. And even then, someone asked me, how long will a 2.2 pound container last? And I'm like, it'll last years. It'll last years. And I didn't realize this because I haven't read it in a long time, but the amount that you're supposed to add to your dog's meal is really high for dogs of my size. And it's not that it's dangerous. It's just that it's not necessary for my dogs. I do half a teaspoon, far less than the amount recommended. So I have a huge container, and just FYI, the container is expired probably a year ago. and I'm still on the first container. And because I did a buy one, get one free, and I'm still going to go through them and use them because I'm also that person. So donning my tinfoil hat, I don't believe in expiration dates on a lot of things. I feel like they're required to give us expiration dates because the FDA, and I think on a lot of things out there, expiration dates are a great idea. But when it comes to dry goods, I think as long as there's no mold or anything in there, then I'm just going to keep giving it to my dogs. So
I'm with you.
It's just the way it is.
I'm with you on that.
Thank you. Thank you for supporting me in this endeavor.
I saw an interesting thing about human health this week that is something, again, that I have been saying for years. It's something I've been telling my parents for years that they refuse to listen to me about. And now there's finally a bunch of headlines coming out saying that sugar substitutes are not helping people lose weight and not helping people control blood sugar. No. And in some cases are causing like more harm than good.
I agree. And they don't taste good either.
Oh, and they taste horrible. My father puts them in his iced tea, and I have been telling him for years to stop doing that because then he gets my nephew doing it. And I'm also convinced that these things, especially things like aspartame and sucralose, can really screw up your gut bacteria. And I had a horrible thing happen probably 15 years ago. I stopped drinking soda and I started drinking these like flavored waters. And a couple months later, I started having all these horrible stomach problems.
Yep.
And I mean, it was to the point like, not to be TMI, but like I was like 29 years old and had to go get a colonoscopy because doctors didn't know what was wrong with my stomach. I was having horrible pains all the time and all this stuff. And nobody could ever tell me what was going on. And it was through all my own research that I discovered I was drinking these waters that had sucralose in them, and that sucralose could cause these kinds of problems and reactions in people. And so I completely cut it all out of my diet, and I have never had a minute's problem ever since. And I have 2 friends who have had similar things that I've shared this information with and have solved what they thought was IBS or something too. And so anyway, I'm going to post that link in the show notes because I think everybody needs to know, stop using those fake sugar packets. Just use regular sugar. It's fine. And rant.
That was lovely. You're very passionate.
I am about that issue. I am.
But I actually had the same experience. I actually used it's called the Mayo or Mio water additives. And I switched from, like, there were those crystal-like-ish type packets that you put in water. And I started feeling weird. And I was talking to a friend of mine and she was like, oh no. And she's like, does it have this in it? And we looked at the ingredients and it did. And I think whatever the ingredient was, the Mio additives don't have it, but also you can control how much you put in it. Cause it's like, you don't need to turn your water into Kool-Aid.
Right.
You can just add like a few drops, like a little squeeze of it, just to add a little bit of a flavor. And it's fine. It just helps makes the water more interesting. But okay, so this has nothing to do with nothing and we won't go into it. But if I remember, I will try to send you a link to a video that I was watching yesterday where people are now doing these water recipes where they're turning water like this. I'm going to make my water, like it'll taste like pineapple upside down cake or things like that. And it's not just water. They're adding other ingredients and stuff. And I'm just sort of like, just go get the Mio packet. This is too much.
Just drink water.
This is too much work.
It's really wonderfully refreshing.
I just don't think that this, after you've done all that to it, that is good for you. If I'm going to do all that, then I'm just going to go and get, like, there's my stepson introduced me to Sour Patch Kids energy drink.
Oh my God.
Exactly. That was the exact right response. He and I shared it. Huh. And I gave some to another friend. We were all together somewhere and we shared it. I had since went and bought another one and it took me, I think, 3 days to finish it because I was just pouring into a glass. Because, those energy drinks are way too big in my opinion. I mean, that's a lot of energy and sugar. and so, but it was delicious, but it was just like, it's just not something that you need to have all the time. So that's what I thought about, but I'll send you the video. It was someone talking about it. I actually didn't watch the whole video because the person's doing like this performance during the video that was kind of driving me crazy. Cause it's like, just tell me what's going on with the drinks. I don't need to know your little character stuff. That's annoying. So,
Tim and I were, around a large group of people recently where this guy who's like in his 30s who was drinking all those like twisted teas and also had drinking energy drinks and then talking about how he has to take like Nexium and Prilosec and all these things. And we were like, oh, fascinating. Can't imagine why.
When I was younger, what is that? Red Bull, when Red Bull first came out. I had 5 Red Bulls.
Oh my God. I would have a heart attack.
And I didn't realize I was at work. And I guess as the day went on, I was talking faster and faster and faster. And then someone came to my desk and was just like, did you drink all these? And I was like, yeah, I did. And they're like, yeah, you're not going to sleep for days. I just went home and took a Benadryl. But yeah, I don't do that anymore. But yeah, my stepson, he does love his energy drinks. That's
Well, he's what, like 25 or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can do that when you're 25.
Yeah, he can destroy his insides and they'll rebuild themselves in 10 years and he'll be fine. Today, I smell an energy drink and I'm just like, oh.
He's got a couple years to little catch up to him.
So Kay has something to say. Kay Stewart of Feed Real, the Feed Real Institute, talking about why she does not feed commercial raw to her dog, what she had to say. And it makes sense to me. I mean, I think that, my main reason for not feeding commercial raw is because it's too expensive with 4 big dogs. But to be perfectly honest, if I had one dog, I'd be commercial raw all the way because it would be so much easier. Not that I don't love doing what I do. I actually do. But yeah, it would be so much easier. So after reading it, are you ready to do DIY?
No. I mean, it's always my goal for one day, but I just keep having 10,000 other things that I'm doing instead. Yeah, what I took out of it, what that was really interesting was she was concerned about high carbohydrates and synthetic vitamins. And I guess one of her points was that if it says on there complete and balanced, then it probably has the synthetic vitamin blend in it. Yeah. And I was thinking of back when I very first started feeding raw. And I mean, I'm sure I've probably told you guys on here before, but like, I was so excited to be able to like afford to feed raw. We paid off Tim's car payment back when he had this Jeep, and we paid it off. And the next month, that money went to buy in raw for Lucy and Kahlua. And I was so excited, to feed this brand. And now it's like I would probably never feed that brand because of using synthetic vitamins and things. But I feel comfortable with the brands that I'm using and how things are being sourced. And we have a few that we rotate around. And so, yeah, but I thought it was a really good point of something to look out for if you're able to do, like best of the best kind of things. I still think feeding something that might have, that's raw but has synthetic nutrients and is HPP is still better than feeding pedigree. You know what I mean? So you just do the best you can with what you can at the time. So that was kind of what I thought about it. But I thought that was an interesting point for all of us to look out for.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because a lot of different, and I asked the question and never got an answer except for it's filler. Because I wanted to know, why do so many like commercial cook brands have potatoes or rice in them? I mean, because obviously there is some benefit or else they wouldn't be adding it to it, but maybe there isn't. Maybe it's to meet that carbohydrate limit that they seem to think dogs need. I don't know. I did hear from people who had dogs that had kidney issues. And so they needed a diet that was low in phosphorus. And these are ingredients that were low and brought the phosphorus numbers down. So that absolutely made sense to me. But that would make sense to me as like, this is what you should feed your dog rather than this is what all dogs should be fed type of thing. But, I'm curious to know when she says that they're high in carbs, I'd be curious to know what carbs was she seeing, because vegetables are carbs. And is it just that it was high in vegetables? And then what percentage of the diet was vegetables? Because I know that there are people who go up to 25% vegetation in their formulation. So I'd be curious to know about that. And when it comes to synthetic ingredients, I'd also want to know because I know that a lot of companies do use them, but some are a lot more thoughtful in the choices that they make. And so I'd be curious to know the differences, like what we're looking at commercial raw, there's synthetic ingredients. How can we tell, like, this is one that I can get behind, but this is one I should be a little wary of? Is it just like the number of words that we can't pronounce is, as far as on the ingredients panel but there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, I agree. I guess to me, it just goes into like being purposeful about what I'm choosing to feed. Like, I don't know that I have the bandwidth to understand like all of those details. So, I'm just going to look for, like I thought that when it says complete and balanced, to really look into that. Like, I thought that was like a great tip to have, to say like, oh, maybe I don't want one that says that, even though it sounds like that would be the better thing, but that's a signal. Oh, they're using like, those pre-mixed synthetic vitamin blends.
It's also good to like what you're doing already is when you alternate, because like I do base mixes, and Dr. Harvey's Paradigm does have synthetic ingredients in it, but it's not like half the formulation. And then their Raw Vibrance has none. And so I go back and forth between Paradigm and Raw Vibrance when I'm feeding my dogs. So they are getting the benefit of variety and the nutrients in both without being inundated with synthetic ingredients. So, I mean, what's interesting is that I feel like it's hard to even ask a company about their vitamin pack because we've made certain things such a no-no, like rice or potatoes. And people don't want to say defensive, but I think that they're wary when we start asking questions about these things. And so we get this really basic response where we really don't know what to do with that. Like if I ask someone, it's like, is there a vitamin mix? And they'll tell me something flowery that probably for a lot of people are like, oh, okay. What I really want to know is how much of this meal is formulated with synthetic nutrients. Where did the synthetic nutrients come from? You bought it because like I'll have people tell me, oh, well, we get a synthetic blend that's, a US synthetic blend or is made in the US. And it's like, okay, so just because it's made in the US doesn't mean that the parts of it are sourced in the US. So
right.
I actually want to get all the way down to the bottom of what is in here, but it's kind of hard to do that. And then to be perfectly honest, I wouldn't know what I would do with the information once I had it. So it's like, I have to ask myself, do I really care? No, I have to trust the brand. And if I trust the brand, then I'm not really too terribly worried about it. But I think it can be concerning for very new brands, because I'm sure that once they realize what it takes to create a balanced meal for dogs, they end up having to use some synthetics probably. And it's probably more affordable because they have to pass those costs on to the consumer. And that's probably why we see the really good brands are a little higher in price.
Yeah.
And so if they want to keep it affordable, then they will probably have to go in that direction. And then also, I don't know, I'm always hesitant to try anything that's from a new brand. I want to let them work their bugs out over a few years before I feed their food to my dogs. But this is what's been so impressive with me watching Viva Raw, because although I don't feed their food to my dogs, it's been really interesting following their journey and how passionate they are about their sourcing. Like the fact that it took them over a year to come out with a rabbit recipe because they wanted to be very particular about where they source their rabbit. And I think that if you have that patience to take the time and do things and do it right, and understand that this is going to add to the cost of your food. So for some people, they're not going to be able to feed your food exclusively, but being so focused, like our priority isn't going to be on creating an affordable product. Our priority is going to be on creating a high quality product. I think that, you can really change the industry. And so it's been really interesting watching them as they've gone on this path.
Yeah, I got to meet them at the Healthy Dog Expo, and it was exciting to talk to them. And it's definitely one I haven't tried yet, but I want to try. Mm-hmm. And again, because I don't have a ton of extra like freezer space, I just have like my regular old, freezer that Tim and I use. That's what always makes me hesitant about ordering the ones that you have to get shipped to you, because, obviously it makes more sense to like get larger orders and stuff, but I don't always have the room to store that. So, that I really do want to try that though. And I love their story, I love people that are passionate about things.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is, because I think that, how as raw feeders, you can always tell the people who are new to raw feeding because they're so passionate and they're very kind of stubborn about it. Like, you have to feed this way, and I can't believe you would feed kibble. And I get it because, it's just, I call it, they're a born again raw feeder. So I get the passion. And I feel that people probably feel this way when they start a raw food company. No one starts a raw food company because they want to get rich. It's just the pet industry is only wealthy to a few. Most people are just basically being able to pay their bills when it comes to, they're in it for the same reason, like the veterinarians and everyone else. They're just very passionate about animals. So to basically take the hits of, this food is too expensive, I can't afford this. I don't know if people are saying this to them, but I have gotten that feedback from people that, they just increase their prices. It means something that they still stick to it because, they have to be able to pay their bills too if they want to stay open. But the fact that, prices are going up all over the place, and the only way for some companies, depending upon your size, the only way you can keep prices low sometimes is to compromise the quality a little bit. And the fact that they're not doing that is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's my rant. But mine was less passionate than yours on the water. Like, I love it when you go on rants. You haven't been on one in a really long time. So yay. What do you have going on for the rest of the week?
Oh, let's see. I think it's a quiet week. I think I got lots of podcast editing to do and books to read and interviews to prep for.
I'm deleting blog posts and images off my website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I've been doing a little bit every day. And just because it's sort of like no one's visiting this article, it doesn't make any sense. And I'm consolidating a lot of articles. My goal is to get my website down to about 300 articles or so. We'll see.
How many are you at?
I'm down to 600 and something, with 500 and something that are published and then 100 drafts. And a lot of the drafts are like ones that I had published, but I unpublished them because I plan on rewriting them. And so I'm just going through. I probably deleted about 20 last night. And I think I've so far deleted about maybe 10 today.
Wow.
So I just go through and I have a way of checking to see, has anyone even read this in the past month?
Right.
And go through and delete it because right now with 4th of July coming up, I have to dust off all my 4th of July. This is how I keep my dogs calm.
Yeah.
Posts. And so I'll get those going and republished. But otherwise, it's like going through doing this process, I'm like, gosh, how many times did I write about this? Like 5 times. And it's like, okay, let's consolidate this into one article. Okay. This is ridiculous. So that's what I'm going through.
Well, my birthday is next week.
Ooh.
So Tim and I have a very fancy pants dinner reservation this weekend at this place near us. It's like a farm to table kind of thing, like with a menu that always changes and stuff like that.
Very cool.
I'm excited. We haven't been there yet. I think they've been open for like a little over a year now, and we haven't been there yet. So I'm excited.
I'm excited to see what you end up ordering. That'll be exciting.
It'll probably be like a steak and something.
And I wonder if it'll like taste better because it's all fresh.
I think so. Like they source from the farm where we get our meat from, and like they tell you like what farm everything's from. I just love that.
The first time I had an artichoke from my garden, I was blown away because I was just like, "This is what artichokes taste like."
Yeah.
Oh my god! I mean, now I have an artichoke plant that's growing right now. And
tomatoes and strawberries are like that,
Yeah, I eat tomatoes off the plant because they're just so good. And so, yeah. So I don't have any fancy pants, plans. Just, keeping Bella from eating my clothes. I would really like her not to destroy another shoe, shirt, bra. I just need her to stop.
I had to say, Neno is so good about that stuff. Like he's always been so good.
Yeah. She's 10 months old now, so I just need her to grow out of that and just go be normal again. Be a good girl.
Those teenagers.
I know.
So ornery.
It's wonderful chatting with you.
Always a pleasure. Bye, guys.
Bye.